Hi, welcome back to the One on One, a podcast for software engineers.
Hi, I'm Rusty Tanton with my co manager host, Bresden O'Malley. Welcome back to the One on One. If you're new here, welcome. The One on One is a podcast built for the people who keep the software industry moving. Our mission is simple to create a platform where engineers, leaders, and tech professionals can have real, honest conversations about the work we do, the challenges we face, and the industry shifts shaping our future.
Today on the One on One, Rusty and I want to take a moment to honor Mental Health Awareness Month. When we started this podcast, it was really about creating a space for ourselves and for others to talk through the real life challenges this industry throws at us. And over time, what's made all the difference hasn't been the tools or titles, it's been the friendships and connections we've built along the way. This show is proof of the amazing people we've met. And one of those people is with us today, Andy Siefkes. Andy is an entrepreneur, a technologist, a leader, a firefighter, and someone who truly lives by example. Whether he's building systems or building community, Andy brings this grounded, human first approach that honestly feels like a breath of fresh air in our industry. Andy really wants to inspire others to put their life on autopilot and do what refreshes and makes them happy. He's taken that mindset and built a life brand around it called Get Busy Livn', an invitation for all of us to stop chasing and start living. One of my favorite things Andy says is, I don't want to die wealthy, I want to live richly. So today, we're talking about what it means to get busy living, not just as a mindset, but as a movement towards a healthier, more human tech culture. Andy, this is your one on one. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, well, thank you for the time, Bresden. It's so good to see you again, and Rusty, great to meet you. What I wanted to talk about in our time together today is, first off, recognizing this is a podcast for technologists. I am a technologist, however, I am a human being, and I do think it's really important given the ominous times that we're in, specifically in our sector, is to have proper work life balance now more than ever. I mean, we're attached to our phones. I yell at my kids all the time for being on their phones. And meanwhile, I'm on my phone just as much. However, I do know when there's an appropriate time to put it down and to quite frankly be human again. So I think it's important that uh, no matter how strong of a technologist that you are, you have to recognize you're still human. And, you know, don't get caught up in the hype of media and everything else because it can be overbearing and overcoming, and it can lead to, just bad behavior, bad outcomes. So, uh, this brand, it exists, this ethos, it exists to make people, embrace today, live for today, because after all, it doesn't matter how old you are. um, you know this could be your last day, so enjoy it, right? So and
Mm,
that's what we push for.
that's amazing. This sounds incredibly personal, but can you think of a moment when you realized you needed to slow down or reset and really come back to a work-life balance yourself?
Oh, all the time. I mean, even, present day, I can, it was
Mhm.
probably days ago or weeks ago that I've had to, give myself that dose of reality. And honestly, some of the things that trigger me getting back into that mindset is, well, I put the shirt on, or, I tattooed on my arm GBL, so I've got the reminder with me, living with me all the time. And I think it's, going back to like the how this started. My oldest is 17. He was born in 2008, and uh, my wife said in 2009, it was spring of 2009, she's like, you know what, get out of the house, for all the right reasons. Get out of the house, go visit your friend out in Colorado, my old college roommate. So I went out there. I had such a wonderful time, and I had a an infant at home, and I left my new, family to go spend a week and spoil myself. And at first it was, I was, just overcome with guilt, and leaving my wife and my newborn, at home and going out and having fun. But when I came back, I was so refreshed, mentally, hit the reset button, or I guess for technologists, the F5 button on your keyboard. And mentally, physically, just, felt good because I was able to get out of the norm and go back to, my roots. And then from that point on, in 2009, that was the first trip, and then the next year, I brought one of my friends out, and then the year after that, I brought another one of my friends out. We would go, when I say out, we would go out west. We'd go camping, fishing up in the mountains, and like literally putting life in airplane mode. Put all technology gone. You're with your friends, um, and the people that matter to you, and it's so good for the soul. This group that I was going out west with, um, they pushed me to, why don't you do something about this, Andy? You've got entrepreneurial spirit. So I did. 2018, I approached, at the time, well, actually, he was a former colleague of mine, again, a colleague later on, Ken Oddie. And I told him about, hey, I have this idea. I want to create a lifestyle brand that reminds us all to get busy living our best life starting today. And Ken told me within 5 minutes of our conversation over lunch, he goes, dude, I'm in. I'm going to be 50 years old. Like, you know, I'm on the back half of life. Now's the time to, embrace the one life that we've got. And 2018, the brand was officially born as a result.
Yeah. So when you guys go on these trips, do you have like structured activities, or do you like just kind of wing it, or how do they work?
Yes. It's, we honestly, we do, like, so we're Wisconsin based, if you couldn't tell. Um, and we've got, like I had mentioned earlier, my college roommate had moved out to the Aspen Valley back in 2003. So we would go out and visit. Years later, we started going on these trips, and um, it was, whether it was camping related, fishing related. He was also a pilot, so he had his own airplane.
Hmm.
We would go, backcountry flying, and flying and landing and taking off on dry riverbeds or grass airfields in the middle of nowhere. So we had structure to like what it is that we were going to do, the challenge that we were going to do, but um, we never over planned anything. We kind of let the time together come to us, right? Because I think sometimes that's where people get anxiety too. It's like, I'm
It's
not a
true.
Disney World family. I'm not a
That's a good
Disney,
point.
we're not a
Yeah.
Disney family. And it's like, because that, so much anxiety, so much stress on, okay, this day we're going to do this, next day we're going to do this, so on and so forth. And it's all weather dependent and everything else. And you're spending tons of money. So we planned, on the calendar. More was more important to have it on the calendar than to plan an actual itinerary.
Yeah.
But that said, we would change it up every year. So one year we go out to Colorado, the next year we go to Wyoming, the next year we go to Montana. We mix it up, and giving giving good variety. So
My wife and I are very different in how we like to travel, because I'm more along those lines. Like, I like to have very loose structure, like maybe one activity planned a day, but then leave a
mhm.
lot of space for spontaneity and space for things to happen. And she's a planner. Like, she wants everything bang, 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 you know, lined up. So it's just interesting. I don't know. Like, do you think that somebody with that kind of personality who, is very bang, 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 can also benefit from these types of trips?
I'd say yes, but I think, it is true. Opposites do attract.
Hmm.
My wife is, she's has a very structured life, and she has that's part of her profession. She's a first grade teacher, and she's done it for the last 25
Good
years.
for
So
her.
she know, yeah,
It's
oh
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
holy cow,
seriously.
holy cow, yeah. So like for sure, a public servant
Yeah,
that works more than 40 hours a week, but very
Absolutely.
structured. Um, I'm not. And, it's one of those things too. To, you don't have to force your life partner or your friends who do have a totally different mindset. You don't have to force them to do things. They can go and do that with like minded folks, right? And have a
Mhm.
better time, quite frankly. They don't have to worry about, is she having a good time? Is he having a good time? So I think one of the things that we like to do in our family is she'll go and do her trip with her friends.
Mm.
I'll go do my thing with my friends. We come back from those trips refreshed, somewhat exhausted mentally, physically, because it was so much fun. But you have things to talk about now. You have those experiences that you had with others that you can share, with your life partner. And
Mhm.
that's so important. You don't have to do everything together. And I think that's the one thing too that some people at face value, when they think about Andy, you're in your late 40s now, and why are you still going on these trips with your, high school and college buddies? And it's because that's who I am, and it's important to focus on who you are at your core. When your brain and your body was still developing in your teens and early
Mhm.
20s, like that's who you are. What happens is we get this calcification or these layers of the onion that just start to grow on layer over layer over layer. And guess what happens? Person that you married 20 years ago is not the person today, right?
right.
Like, but you
Amen.
got to go, but at your core, you are, and
Yeah.
you got to find ways to get back to your core, and therefore you're being true to yourself. And when you're true to yourself, you feel good. There's fulfillment. Um, and quite frankly, that's, people want to be around that. People don't want to be around somebody who's just constantly stressed, worried about the next shoe dropping, and because life is happening, right? And life happens to all of us.
That's a good point. I am now curious, what does your wife do on her excursions?
So she loves she loves the Caribbean. She loves the ocean. She
Mm.
loves swimming in the ocean. She loves the white sandy beaches. I do too. However, I like the mountains. Love the mountains. I like fishing. I like camping. She likes hotels. I like bathing in a river. She likes bathing in a bathroom. Things of that nature. So
That's fair.
yeah, yeah. So but then I will say this. Going back to you know, find your lane of things that you'd like to do and do them. And you don't have to necessarily force others to do them, but it's still important to do something together as well. So, like in our family, I do my trip, she does her trip, we do something together as a family, and then we'll do something together on our own as well. And it's hard to do, it's complex, but it's something that you have to put forth the effort, and it just makes you a better person as a whole, as a result.
No, I'm definitely on team. Don't force your vacations together if you don't have to. My wife for her 40th birthday did an all-inclusive resort where it was like, just everything included, and including meals. You didn't have to think about anything. And like my 40th
Mhm.
birthday is I don't know if you've heard of these mystery trips. So like they give you plane tickets and you don't know where you're going until you get to the airport. And so my trip was I ended up in Belize and Guatemala. And so like I was hiking through the jungle, I was going to Mayan ruins. To her, that is a massive anxiety attack. And so like if she
Yep.
had gone on that trip with me, she'd have hated it. And
Mhm.
I cherish that experience and I'm glad that I had that experience. So I mean, I definitely agree with you on all that. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, and you don't have to, don't force her to do something. Don't force those that you're close with, to do things that they're just not, it's not who they are.
Yeah.
I do like pushing the boundaries, don't get me wrong. I do like flying a little close to the sun and burning my wingtips occasionally, trying different things. But you've got to be mindful of others too. But I still like, you know, part of part of the GBL ethos is to push your own boundaries, right? Get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Do the thing you've always wanted to do, and that's just so important.
So for us workaholics out there, how what is the advice you'd give them to try and get busy living?
Workaholics out there, it's advice that I would give them. I'm going to pull up a text message, if you don't mind. I had reached out to Tim, see if he could get together, and he's like, I can't. And uh, I said, well, how about the next week or the week after? And he's like, no, Andy, it's a little more complex than that. He eventually alluded to he had leukemia,
Oh man.
and it was terminal. And um, when I recall working with him, one of the reasons I took him out fishing many years earlier and taught him how to fly fish was he was a workaholic. And when he told me that he was terminally ill, my heart sank.
Yeah.
And at this time, I had started Get Busy Living, the brand. And I didn't tell him that, but I said, you know what? You know, I understand you can't get together. I said, I want to send you something. So I sent him a link to our website. And at the time, we had multiple hats to choose from. And I said, let me know which hat that you like. And so there's the picture of the hats. And again, I didn't tell him that I had started this business. And, it plainly says, oh, it's right here on this hat. It says Get Busy Living. And he said, LOL, that's actually my new theme. I didn't know they made hats for it. Cancer will certainly alter your focus.
Yeah.
Then he tells me which hat that he likes. Then he goes on, and this is the most important part. And this is for all the workaholics out there.
Mm.
Andy, thanks in advance. I've been telling a lot of people that exact that exact thing. Get busy living. Most everyone understands the general concept, then work associated with busyness kicks in. The tyranny of the urgent. For many years, I've told people that no one will remember the weeks that they worked 60 hours. They, they'll remember the important special times spent with them doing all sorts of stuff, not work. Look for a reason. I've fallen off this myself in the past few years, and cancer really adjusted my outlook. Get busy living.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's beautiful.
Workaholics, take a break. Be human. There's no guarantee that you're going to have a tomorrow. And, I know, people don't like talking about their own mortality, right? But the fact of the matter is, nobody's coming out alive.
Nope.
We're all going to have our last days, right? And if we have enough time in our last days on earth, our last moments on earth, to reflect on our life, the last thing I want myself or anybody that I love is to have regret. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have tried this as a career. I wish I would have gone on that trip. I
Mhm.
wish I would have done that thing. I wish I would have had that experience. And now physically, mentally, I can't. And I can't think of a worse way to take my last breaths than to have regret, right? So hearing things like what my late friend Tim shared with me is just that constant reminder, and here he's been gone now for 6 years, and I still have his text message, I still have his contact info, and it's my constant reminder that occasionally I have to pull up and remind myself, because I do get busy, right? Um, Get Busy Living for me, it's a passion project. It generates revenue. It doesn't generate enough revenue to support a family with almost college age kids and things of that nature. But it's my passion project for life, and it's so important. And I do that in addition to working in the IT consulting space. So it's at times it's high stress, it's long hours, but I can do it because I do take those breaks. And
Mm.
that's the message to the workaholics is take the break, come up for air. Holy cow, come up for air, and knock off those layers of the onion or that calcification that's happened over time, and get back to your core on who you are. You'll be a better person, and people will like to be around you as a result.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think everybody wants to do that. I think the struggle for some people is how, right? Like,
Mhm.
when they're, when, and especially in this frankly terrible job market we're in right now, I know that developers in particular are feeling a lot of pressure to live up to
Mhm.
employers' expectations. Employers feel like they can tell them to work longer hours, et cetera.
Mhm.
I don't know. When you've found yourself in a situation when I'm in too deep, I'm working too much, I need to reset, I need to get out, I need to get busy living my actual life and not my work life. What are some
Mhm.
strategies you've used?
Strategies that I've used, it's I guess the one thing that I remind myself of is to coin Warren Buffett, who, if you don't know who Warren Buffett is,
Yeah.
shame on you, the Oracle of Omaha. But, he said, you know, we live in these ominous times right now.
Right.
AI is taking our jobs. We've got these crazy macroeconomic conditions. With the current administration, we don't know what's going to happen the next day. And again, I'm not a political person, but I think the mindset that he had in one of his quotes, and I'm going to go and look on a different monitor here so I get it right, is be fearful when others are greedy,
Yeah.
and be greedy when others are fearful. And right now, we are fearful,
Yeah.
right? The majority, you know, open to work, in transition, downsizing, reduction in force happening, all over the place. Life's a roller coaster. Our careers can be a roller coaster. And I would say it's okay, it's okay to feel that way, but it may be your time to do something different. And that's where, we'll take a pause on Get Busy Living right now. And, my professional IT services career is building a consultancy that we recently launched, and doing it in a time where everybody's worried about what's going to happen, in our IT sector, in our industry, and people are fearful, right? And that's when we're being greedy, according to Warren Buffett, right? And I'll tell you, it's been pretty refreshing, the support that since we've launched this consulting service here in Wisconsin. um, the support has been awesome. And whether it's former colleagues like Bresden reaching out independently saying this is awesome, this is great news, or some legacy accounts that we had worked with in the past saying this is awesome, we're going to find some work for you because we love what you're doing. And this is quite frankly what our industry, needs right now is good news. And,
Mm.
here we are, not even a year into it, and we've had, from our perspective, great success. We're over 20 colleagues in a very short amount of
Mhm.
time, and continuing to be in growth mode when others are fearful. So, you don't have to be entrepreneurial and take the leap like like we did necessarily, because it is scary at times. Um, but even in doing that and running this lifestyle business, um, I still have that balance. I have enough time for family. I have enough time for my friends and enough time for myself, and it can be done. So there's a lot of people out there that are way smarter and way more entrepreneurial than I am, and have way more gray matter than I do, to do awesome things. But they sometimes get in their own heads and they can't get out of that. And you can. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to just do something different. And you can do something different and leverage technology to build something special. I mean, look at what happened with Get Busy Living. We've shipped our products globally. There's stranger validation that constantly happens, with our brand of people who appreciate what it is that we do, the message that we share, and the vibe that we're trying to go for. And it's awesome, and it's doable. It's doable.
What has this brand done for you mentally? And then what has the brand done, you know, that you're really proud of?
So what the brand, has done for me is, again, it's given me that check. It's held myself accountable to say, dude, you got it tattooed on your arm. You're wearing shirts, you're proclaiming how great it is to get out there and get busy living your best life. Well, you better do it yourself. And I think so there's that aspect of it. And I think I'll even take a step way back, and I probably should have brought this up at the beginning of the podcast, but why is the company name called Get Busy
Mm,
Livin'?
yeah.
Well, it's spelled Liv apostrophe N, so we could trademark it first off. So that's why it's got the weird spelling. And we could buy the URL and do all of the things there. But the name comes from the greatest movie of all time that was released in 1994, that was overshadowed by Forrest Gump, and that is The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh,
And if you haven't
so
seen The
good.
Shawshank Redemption,
Everybody's
you
seen the
need to
Shawshank
see
Redemption.
You
anybody
need
who
to
grew up
get
with cable,
living
Yeah.
and go watch that movie.
anybody who grew up and had cable at home and had PBS on, it was on
It was
every
on constantly.
every three
Yeah.
e- ev- every three
Yeah.
hours it was on. But that movie is so well written. The original screenplay, by the way, fun fact, was written by Stephen King,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
which is pretty amazing because everybody thinks horror films when they think Stephen King. But anyway, in that movie, the whole ethos in that movie is, it's about hope and the
Mm,
power of hope, and it's about friendship and the power of friendship, and why it's so important to have hope and
mhm.
why it's so important to have friendship. Because without hope and friendship, why the hell are we here?
Yeah.
And you've got Andy and Red in that movie that develop this awesome friendship, right? And if you recall, two-thirds through the movie, Andy Dufresne reflects on all of the mistakes that he made in his life. And unfortunately, fortunately, he's had time to think about it because he's been incarcerated for a
Mhm.
crime that he didn't commit. but he had time to reflect on all of the things he wish he would have done differently that he didn't do that led him got him into the position where he was falsely accused of a crime he did not commit. And uh, and then he talks about hope in the same dialogue that he's having with Red. And he said it all comes down, I've made bad choices in my life, and I'm going to fix that. And he also, and then he goes on to say it all comes down to one simple thing: we either got to get busy living or get busy dying.
Mm.
And so that's where the brand comes from. And I'll say this too. Again, um, it's tough times for our industry right now. It's tough times in the tech sector. AI is taking over. Robots are going to take over the world. They're going to take your jobs. In six
Mhm.
days,
Right.
6 weeks, 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
It's doom and gloom. But I'll also say this, and going back to the movie, Andy Dufresne climbed through a tunnel of shit to get to freedom.
Mm. Mhm.
So, there you go. Sometimes you have to literally muscle your way through a tunnel of, sorry, I swore, I probably shouldn't, but
It's fine.
um, you can bleep it out. Sometimes you have to tunnel your way through to get out on the other side, right? And
Mhm.
another comparison is, it's always darkest before dawn. And that's another thing, another mindset that you have to give yourself to is like, sometimes life happens, and sometimes, more often than not, it's not what you wanted it to be. But don't lose hope,
Mhm.
and because hope is powerful. And be sure that you've got good friends, or a good friend. uh, and that friend could even be a dog or a cat or a pet or whatever. But the power of friendship and the power of hope are, you know that's what helps us get through. So,
That's awesome. So what's next for the brand, Andy? What do you what do you got on the docket?
well, we build, measure, learn, try different things, right? We started in 2018 with very basic hats and t-shirts, and the simple basic wearables. We had two different designs. um, and then we started to put it on coffee cups, put it on pint glasses, put it on stickers, put it on can koozies. um, Anything that we could put our likeness on, from a branding perspective, we would do that on merchandise, and then we would sell that. The one thing that we started to experiment with a couple of years ago, and we've dialed it back a little bit, but we started to, during the pandemic, when things were normal in the pandemic, like, circa 2021, 22, and we got used to this new norm. What I think we all realized is that, um, life isn't about things and collecting material things. Life is about experiences. So we actually started doing adventure travel. And
Oh, that's
at
cool.
first, we were focused on women only trips, because
Yeah,
women
yeah.
were an underserved market.
Yeah.
And we were focused on adventure travel. So this was, hiking, in the Grand Canyon, hiking and the Cascades, you know, um, 10 plus miles of hiking a day kind of a thing, so, physically active
Mhm.
stuff. And
Yeah.
we did public trips. And that was a challenge to interview people, make sure that they're physically, mentally, fit, capable,
Mhm.
of doing those trips. So we've stopped doing public trips, or offering public trips, but we do private travel. So we'll do adventure travel where we will build out the itinerary for you. We can lead the excursions that you're on, or we can just build the itinerary for you and hand that over to you. So, over time, we made a little bit of a shift of doing experiences, not just things. I think we're starting to revert a little bit more to doing the things, knowing that we're still pushing for people to have experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and because again, that's what's important, right? So, um, yeah, I guess one thing, and maybe we should talk about this at some point, but part of what we do with the brand is on the back of all of our merch stickers says that it's a lifestyle brand with a purpose. And I think it's important to bring this up at some point because we give back 5% of our top line revenue every quarter to nonprofits. And that's not 5% net profits. That's 5% right off the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's a steep percentage if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. Now we're not $1 million business, so it doesn't have that big of an impact, dollar wise for us. However, it's important that we give back to the community, and we like to rotate between um, humanitarian and environmental nonprofits. And worth mentioning, we've you know we've got we're in tough times right now.
Yeah.
Again, going back to our sector, and um, next month is Mental Health Awareness Month. I don't know if you guys were aware of that or not. So, yeah, starting May 1st, starting this week,
Mm-hmm.
is Mental Health Awareness Month, and one of the partners that we're giving back to, right now is Mom's Mental Health Initiative, and that's a nonprofit here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that helps mothers with newborns that are dealing with you know postpartum depression, other challenges, with having children, starting a family, and it's a wonderful support group that we're happy to be partnered with, as an example. So, I think the what I want people to know about our brand is that we're a lifestyle brand with a purpose, and our purpose is to promote the one life that you've got. And whether we do that through wearables or our products or our experiences, that's so important to us, you know. And in parallel to that effort of importance is the giving back to the community, and doing that, with the nonprofits that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
We work with nonprofits that don't have a website, they don't have a social media presence, but guess what? They're on our website. Every single nonprofit that we've partnered with since the inception of our business is captured on our website, and
I love
if we
that.
can help promote their mission, in addition to ours, everybody wins, right? So for us, it's building awareness of the brand, um, for your own benefit, for ours too. We think it's cool, that people are buying our
Mm-hmm.
products and tagging us on social media and with their trips or experiences. Um, but we also think that it's just equally as important that we're helping nonprofits out there that have strong, mission-driven values that are similar to ours. So
Sweet. Do you have any closing thoughts for us, Andy?
I think it's important we're all human beings, to just remind all of us, we're all human beings. We're all in
Mm-hmm.
this together. Try and make somebody laugh, try and make somebody smile. It'll make you smile back. So,
First of all, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I want to call attention to Mental Health Awareness Month again because this topic is deeply personal to us. We've all been navigating a lot professionally, emotionally, personally, and it's easy to forget that behind every screen and every meeting and every deadline, there's a human being who might be struggling. So please, please, please check in with yourself. Check in with your friends, your coworkers, your family. Have a one-on-one. So many people carry their pain quietly, and sometimes just knowing someone cares can make all the difference. If you or someone you know is in crisis, don't wait. You can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. Just remember, take care of yourself, and if you ever need someone to talk to or just want to connect, you can always find us on LinkedIn or through your listening platform. Until next time, keep going. Thank you so much, and get busy living.
Opinions expressed on the one-on-one belong only to us and our guests, not to any of our respective employers. Does this platform call to you? Do you need a one-on-one? You can find us on the web at theoneonone.show. That's THE1ON1.show, where you can sign up to be a guest. We also love listener messages. You can email us at contact@theoneonone.show or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/theoneononepodcast. Send us your comments and questions, and we may respond to your message in a future episode. You can also find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube by searching for The One-on-One. Please rate and review us on those services. It helps us out a lot. The One-on-One wouldn't be possible without listeners like you and a fantastic community of people who help us in ways large and small. Special thanks to Cameron Cooper, who helps us with marketing, Michael Ducharme, who created our bumper music, and Elena Sage, who's been a huge booster since day one. Thanks for listening.